"We're ending your research grant immediately," Dr. Kim said, the pharmaceutical executive from the boardroom table. "Gene therapy for rare diseases doesn't make money." I nodded politely, but I kept quiet about the fact that earlier that day I had learned my side project, one they had repeatedly discouraged, had successfully produced a compound that could change treatment for thousands of patients, including my own brother. My name is Mai Kim. At 34, I was about to lose my job as research director at Helix Pharmaceuticals, one of the country's largest drug companies. For 3 years, I had led their gene therapy division, working on treatments for rare genetic disorders while secretly developing a bold new idea that Helix executives dismissed as too experimental and not profitable. "The board has looked at your team's progress reports," continued Philip Carrington, Helix's CEO, speaking in a rehearsed tone that made it clear the decision had been made long ago. "Your work is scientifically impressive, but the market for these rare diseases is too small to justify further investment." Around the table, the Helix executives and board members showed expressions ranging from boredom to thinly veiled satisfaction. My direct supervisor, Dr. Harold Freeman, avoided meeting my eyes as he stared at his tablet. He had warned me many times to focus on research that would attract more money, studying common disorders that could lead to blockbuster drugs. "I understand," I said calmly while gathering my presentation materials, the promising results that would now never be seen. "When should I leave my lab?" "By the end of the week," Carrington replied, already checking his phone. "HR will contact you about your severance." After the meeting, Dr. Freeman came over. "I'm sorry, May. I tried to defend your team, but the numbers." "The numbers," I interrupted softly, "don't reflect human suffering. Just because fewer people need a treatment doesn't make it any less important." He sighed, his tired expression hinting that he might agree. "This is a business, not a charity. You've always had trouble with that. And you've always been good at accepting it," I replied kindly. We had worked together for 7 years, and despite our differences, I respected his scientific judgment. "What will you do now?" he asked. I smiled a little, remembering an email from Dr. Yasmin Chen, my collaborator at University Hospital. "I have options." Back in my lab, my team was waiting, their faces tense. They knew this meeting might be our last chance to secure funding. I led 6 talented scientists, each personally connected to the rare diseases we studied. Marcus's niece had Tay-Sachs disease, Sophia's cousin had Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and my younger brother Jin had been diagnosed with Fanconi anemia when we were children. "They're shutting us down," I announced directly. There was no need to soften the news. The team's reactions ranged from resignation to anger. We had all seen this coming because of the mounting pressure to change our research focus, the budget cuts, and suddenly unavailable equipment. "So, are you saying 3 years of work are just thrown away?" Marcus asked, his voice tight. "Not thrown away," I corrected quietly as I closed the door, "and certainly not finished." I opened a secure email on my tablet and passed it around. It contained early results from Compound RD27, an experimental gene therapy delivery system I had been developing alongside our official research at Helix. Using University Hospital's facilities with Dr. Chen, I had been testing a daring new method that combined CRISPR gene editing with a new type of virus for delivery, a project that Helix had specifically told me to stop because it was too risky and expensive. "This is amazing," Sophia whispered as she studied the data. 85% success rate, that's unheard of. "And it's ours," I said firmly, "not Helix." I made sure we kept it separate. "We did this on our own time, using non-Helix resources." "What are you suggesting?" asked Raj, our computational biologist. "I'm starting my own company. I've been preparing for this for months and already have investors lined up who specialize in biotech startups." I looked at each of them. "And I want you all to join me." A heavy silence followed. Leaving a stable job at Helix for an untested startup was a big risk, even with promising results. "What would we be giving up?" asked Liu, the most practical one in our group. "Helix has money, labs, and a strong reputation. And shareholders who don't care about rare diseases," I replied. "I'm offering you a chance to finish what we started, to create treatments that otherwise might never exist." By the end of the day, all 6 of them agreed to come with me. We had 2 days to gather our personal research notes and prepare to leave. We followed all legal and ethical rules. making sure to keep only our original work and ideas. On my last day, Dr. Freeman stopped by as I packed my things. I heard a rumor, he said, that Aurelia Ventures is funding a new biotech company focused on rare diseases. I kept my face neutral. Aurelia Ventures was indeed backing us. But I didn't want Helix to know yet. I haven't heard that. Haven't you? He studied me. Be careful, May. Helix doesn't like competition, especially from ex-employees. Is that a warning or a threat, Harold? A friendly heads up. Carrington plays tough, and he has lawyers to back him up. He hesitated, then added, for what it's worth, I think you were right about the research, about the priorities. But this industry doesn't have to be this way, I finished for him. That's what I intend to prove. He nodded and held out his hand. Good luck, Dr. Kim. I have a feeling we'll be hearing about your work again. 2 weeks later, we launched Nexus Therapeutics in a small incubator near University Hospital. Dr. Chen joined as Chief Medical Officer, and we recruited 2 more scientists through academic networks. Our office was small, our lab equipment secondhand, but the energy was incredible. Without Helix's corporate bureaucracy, we moved fast. Ironically, the very research Helix had called financially unviable was now attracting serious investor interest. Our seed funding had gone beyond expectations, and advocacy groups reached out about partnerships. 3 months in, we had a major breakthrough. ID27 successfully corrected genes in cells from 3 different rare diseases, including Fanconi anemia. Our findings were published in a prestigious journal, giving Nexus its first big moment in the spotlight. The day after the paper was released, my phone rang from an unknown number. Dr. Kim, this is Philip Carrington from Helix Pharmaceuticals. I nearly dropped my phone in shock. Mr. Carrington, what can I do for you? I'll get straight to the point. Your RD27 results are impressive. The technology could be useful beyond rare diseases. That's true, I said cautiously. Helix would like to discuss a collaboration or licensing deal. With our resources, we could speed up development significantly. It was both satisfying and infuriating. The same company that had dismissed my work now wanted a piece of it. I appreciate the interest, Mr. Carrington, but Nexus is focused on rare diseases not as a side project, but as our main goal. I understand your passion, Dr. Kim, but be realistic. Clinical trials, approvals, and manufacturing require resources. Startups struggle with that. His tone was polite, but his message was clear. Without Helix, we might never bring our treatments to market. We have enough funding for our current projects, I said. That wasn't entirely true. While we had secured good initial investment, we would need much more to get FDA approval. I see. A brief pause. Then we should discuss Helix patents. Our legal team believes your work may overlap with our intellectual property. And there it was, the thinly veiled threat. If we didn't cooperate, they would drag us into a legal battle we couldn't afford. I'm sure our lawyers would find that conversation interesting. I replied calmly, though my heart was racing. Especially since we have clear documentation proving we developed RD27 independently. I kept my tone steady. Was there anything else, Mr. Carrington? After hanging up, I called an emergency meeting with our team and legal advisors. Helix's threat was serious. Even if they didn't have a strong case, a lawsuit could scare off our investors and slow us down. Exactly what Carrington wanted. They're bluffing, Raj said, reviewing our patents. RD27 is completely different from anything Helix owns. But they don't need to win, Sophia pointed out. Just filing a lawsuit could make our investors nervous. Dr. Chen, who had been quiet, finally spoke. What if we go public? A giant pharmaceutical company trying to crush a rare disease startup wouldn't look good. That's risky, our lawyer warned. It could backfire. Carrington has powerful connections. We debated late into the night, but there was no clear solution. After everyone left, I stared at the whiteboard, filled with ideas and counter-strategies. It all felt familiar. Big companies deciding who deserved treatment based on profit, not need. My phone chimed. A text from Jin. Still at the lab? Don't forget to eat. Also, Dad's birthday dinner is Sunday. His message brought sudden clarity. This wasn't just business, it was about Jin and others like him who needed someone to stand up for them. The next morning, I made 2 important calls. The first was to Angela Torres, a respected journalist who covered healthcare and drug accessibility. The second was to Dr. Freeman. Harold, it's Meg Kim. I think Helix is about to sue Nexus Therapeutics. My hands shook, but I kept my voice steady. I've heard rumors, he admitted. May, I warned you. Carrington doesn't play fair. I need your help. The words were hard to say, but the situation demanded it. A long pause. What kind of help? Proof. Internal documents showing that Helix rejected this research despite its potential. Evidence that they only cared about profits. You're asking me to leak company documents? That could ruin my career. I'm asking you to stop a corporation from blocking life-saving treatments. You told me I was right about the research. Another long silence. I'll think about it. I wasn't sure if he would help, but at least the wheels were in motion. The next day, Angela Torres interviewed me. It was a gamble. Speaking out could either protect us or make Helix come after us harder. 3 days later, her article was published. Pharmaceutical giant threatens startup fighting for rare disease patients. Angela had done a brilliant job. She explained the science, the ethics, and the human side, especially Jin's struggle with Fanconi anemia. She exposed how corporate profits dictated which diseases got treatments. Helix's aggressive tactics against Nexus became a case study in everything wrong with the system. The public reaction was immediate. Patient advocacy groups spoke out, social media exploded in outrage, and leading bioethicists criticized Helix. By the afternoon, Helix's stock had dropped 4%. Then something shocking happened. An anonymous source leaked internal Helix documents to major news outlets. Memos, emails, and meeting notes proved what we had suspected. Helix had canceled rare disease research, even after seeing promising results, simply because the market was too small. Worst of all was an email from Carrington himself, dismissing patient advocacy concerns as irrelevant to shareholder interests. The leak turned a fleeting controversy into a full-blown scandal. Helix wasn't just facing public backlash, it was now dealing with potential shareholder lawsuits for misrepresenting its research pipeline. I never confirmed whether Dr. Freeman was the source, but a week later, he called me with unexpected news. I've resigned from Helix, he said. They doubled down instead of addressing legitimate concerns. Now they're hunting for the leak and planning aggressive countermeasures against Nexus. Are you all right? I asked, concerned about the professional costs of his decision. Surprisingly, yes. It's liberating to finally make a decision based on principles rather than corporate pragmatism. He hesitated, then added, I've already been approached by 3 institutions to lead rare disease programs. Seems like the field is suddenly in demand. Nexus, too, benefited in ways we hadn't anticipated. The scandal amplified our visibility, attracting top-tier scientists and investors. 2 major foundations specializing in rare diseases awarded us grants, and a prominent biotech investor proposed a series of funding rounds, securing our operations for at least 2 years. Most significantly, a coalition of patient advocacy groups reached out with a revolutionary idea, a funding model prioritizing accessibility over profit. Their plan ensured fair pricing and reinvested revenue into further rare disease research, an approach that could reshape the industry. 6 months after leaving Helix, I stood at the National Institutes of Health's Genetic Medicine Conference, presenting our latest findings. Our early clinical trials for RD-27 in treating Fanconi anemia showed promise, enough to generate serious interest. Jin, now enrolled in the trial, was showing his first real signs of improvement. As I wrapped up, I noticed a familiar figure in the back row, Philip Carrington. After the Q&A, he approached the podium. Impressive work, Dr. Kim, he said, his tone measured. Helix has been following your progress. I'm aware, I replied. Their legal threats had evaporated after the leaks made their case untenable, but we knew they were watching. The board has undergone some changes. There's new leadership interested in reevaluating our approach to rare disease treatments. He handed me a business card. If you're open to discussion, we'd like to explore potential synergies. I accepted it without commitment. Nexus has a clear mission, Mr. Carrington. Any collaboration would have to align with that. The industry is evolving. Companies that don't adapt risk becoming irrelevant. There was a grudging respect in his voice, an admission that we have forced their hand. That night, over dinner at Jin's favorite restaurant, I told him about the encounter. So now that you've proven them wrong, Helix wants back in, he asked with a smirk. Are you going to work with them? I considered it. Their resources could help, manufacturing, distribution, regulatory experience, but I don't trust them. You wanted to change things from the inside, he pointed out. Maybe, I admitted, watching him, the healthiest he'd been in years. But sometimes you have to build something new to prove what's possible. Over the next year, Nexus grew rapidly. We opened a larger research facility, expanded clinical trials to 5 additional rare genetic disorders, and launched the Nexus Access Program, ensuring no patient would be denied treatment due to cost. Our model started influencing other biotech firms facing growing public pressure over drug pricing. Dr. Freeman eventually joined us as research director, leading an expanded team of scientists drawn by both the mission and the science. Our research showed that treatments developed for rare diseases often unlocked insights into more common conditions, proving that medical progress shouldn't be dictated by market size. 18 months after our standoff with Helix, I received an unexpected visitor at Nexus headquarters. Andrea Whitman, Helix's newly appointed CEO, had requested a meeting. Dr. Kim, thank you for your time, she said, her manner refreshingly direct, free of Carrington's veiled arrogance. I'll be honest, Helix has changed, new leadership, new philosophy. We recognize that our past approach to rare disease research was flawed. I gave a wry smile. That's one way to put it. The industry is at a crossroads, Andrea Whitman continued. Traditional pharmaceutical models are under pressure, regulatory scrutiny, public trust issues, and new funding approaches like yours. Forward-thinking companies need to adapt. And Helix now considers itself forward-thinking? I asked. Helix recognizes that it nearly dismissed a transformative therapeutic approach because of outdated metrics of value. She placed a folder on my desk. We'd like to propose a strategic partnership, not an acquisition or takeover, but a collaborative framework that preserves Nexus's independence and mission while leveraging Helix's infrastructure to accelerate treatment availability. I opened the folder, scanning the proposal with professional interest while keeping my expression neutral. The terms were surprisingly equitable, with explicit protections for Nexus's research priorities and access commitments. This is not what I expected, I admitted. The board has realized that there's both scientific and business value in approaches they once dismissed, she said with a small smile. Having one's assumptions publicly proven wrong tends to facilitate reconsideration. Why Nexus specifically? There are other rare disease biotech companies, none with your combination of scientific innovation and ethical framework. Your access program has become a model. And frankly, Helix needs to rebuild its reputation. A partnership with Nexus would demonstrate a genuine commitment to change. The proposal required careful consideration. After thanking her, I promised a thorough review with our leadership team. As she left, I sat at my desk, reflecting on how far we'd come. 3 years ago, I had been forced out of Helix for believing that scientific merit and human need should drive research priorities as much as market calculations. Now, that same company was seeking a partnership, one that, if structured correctly, could bring our model to a much larger scale. Later that week, our team gathered to discuss the proposal. Opinions were divided. They need us more than we need them, Raj argued. Our reputation is spotless. Theirs is still recovering. But their global manufacturing capacity could make our treatments available worldwide years sooner, Dr. Chen countered. There are patients who can't wait. Dr. Freeman, who had remained quiet, finally spoke. May, you've seen Helix from both sides. What do you think? I took a breath. Institutions can change when the people within them change. Andrea Whitman has a different vision than Philip Carrington did. But any partnership needs ironclad guarantees on treatment accessibility and research priorities. The debate continued for days, expanding to include patient advocates and ethical advisors. Ultimately, we moved forward with a modified version of the proposal, one that maintained Nexus's independence while establishing a collaborative framework for manufacturing and distribution. 6 months later, I stood in a hospital room, watching as the first commercially available treatment for Fanconi anemia was administered to a 10-year-old girl named Sophia. Her parents had traveled across the country, not for a clinical trial, but for an approved therapy, one made available regardless of insurance status or financial situation, thanks to the access program we have fought to protect. Jin, now in remission and working as a patient advocate for Nexus, sat beside me. "Remember when they said this would never be commercially viable?" he asked, his smile wry. "They weren't entirely wrong," I admitted. "Under the traditional pharmaceutical model, the numbers didn't work. That's why we had to create a different model." As we left the room, we passed the oncology research wing where Dr. Chen was leading a new study applying our delivery technology to cancer therapies, an extension of our work that might help far more patients than we had originally imagined. Over coffee in the hospital cafeteria, Jin mentioned a call he had received. "Dr. Harrison from the NIH. They're launching a new institute for translational research in understudied diseases. They want me on the patient advisory board. And they want you on the scientific oversight committee." "That's a significant commitment," I noted, though I was already intrigued. "It's a chance to influence research priorities at the national level," Jin said, "to make sure scientific value isn't constantly overshadowed by market value." I thought back to the moment Helix had deemed our research commercially unviable. The treatment that had saved Jin's life, now saving others, would never have existed under that paradigm. "I'll do it," I said. "It's time to change the system, not just work around it." Later that day, I received an email from Andrea Whitman. Helix's board had approved the expanded access program for all rare disease treatments developed through our partnership. It was a major victory, proof that the model we had fought for was gaining traction. 3 years after being told my research wasn't commercially viable, I had not only proven its scientific merit but helped pioneer a sustainable model that balanced innovation with accessibility. We had demonstrated that ethical principles and scientific advancement could coexist with business success. As I walked through the Nexus laboratories that evening, watching our team push the boundaries of genetic medicine, I reflected on the power of perseverance. The most transformative breakthroughs don't just come from challenging scientific assumptions. They come from questioning the systems that determine which science is pursued in the first place. Jin had been right when he suggested I originally wanted to change things from the inside. But sometimes the most effective way to reform a system is to build something better, something that forces it to evolve. Lining the hallways were patient testimonials, stories of lives changed by treatments that had once been deemed impossible. They were the clearest proof that innovation isn't just about what's scientifically feasible. It's about what we choose to make possible. And in the end, that was our greatest breakthrough.